G'day guys, Chris here. Just want to share with you a little bit about the context we're in, thinking about the virus, thinking about what it means to love others, love God, and also just thinking about vaccination. So I just thought that might be a helpful little conversation to have at this point. The first thing to realize as we approach life now is that God made us as moral human beings. He made us with a conscience to understand our own actions in the world, and he gave us the capacity to think and live for him and make right and wrong decisions. And that's how he's made us. We're not just like the animals. We're moral beings, and that's how he's made us as people. And I think just sticking our heads in the sand and just saying, I'm just going to do something, I'm not going to think about it, or I'm just going to do what everyone else does, doesn't respect who you are as a moral human being, as someone made in the image of God and can live for him. So actually thinking about these things is really important. Secondly, it's really important to have these conversations. Conversations maybe with a group of other Christians, conversations in your household, conversations with Christian people you respect, and that can be incredibly helpful. And I hope that this video helps inform your conversation about these things. That helps us think about our life. So conversations are very important to have with other people. So moral human beings, conversations with people. So well done for thinking these things through and taking them seriously. Thinking through what does it mean to live in our world now. Thinking about vaccination. Very, very important. One of the big thing is though that COVID and the pandemic, as incredibly huge as it is, it's not the big thing that's going on in the world. The big thing that's going on in the world is actually God's coming judgment and the reality of people being out of relationship with him. Sin is the big problem, not the pandemic, not the virus. Sin is the big issue. It's the big issue for our young people. It's the big issue for our older people. That is the big issue. And facing God unforgiven. And so the gospel is the answer to that. And so for people to know Jesus as their Lord and Saviour, that is the thing that's most important. That is the thing that they need to know. Now, if you're someone that trusts Jesus as the Lord and Saviour, then you are light years ahead. That is the thing to have right in life. And now you want to respond to people out of love. And so our actions in the world stem from love. The Apostle Paul in the book of Romans talks about how love is the fulfillment of the law. He says this. Let me just look it up. He says, "Let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another, for whoever loves others has fulfilled the law." And in chapter 13, verse 10, he says, "Love does no harm to a neighbour. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law." So as Christian people, we want to think about what it looks like to love others. And loving others, it isn't just automatic what that answer might be. We need to think about the context we're in, the people we're with. What does it look like to love these people? And as Christian people, we aren't thinking about our own self-preservation. We're thinking about what does it mean to do the right thing before God and love others. Now, just thinking about the context we're in, I think the context has changed. It's Friday, August the 6th. And the Prime Minister today has really come out and said the goal of suppression isn't working. We're going to have to learn to live with the virus. We've been in lockdown now for however many weeks in New South Wales, and the numbers still keep on going up. And so what are we to do? And this Delta variant, very serious for some people, asymptomatic for others. It can kill some people, but other people, they're fine. And so that's the context we're in. We're in context where we're going to have to start living with this virus. The government won't protect us from lockdown, from the virus. It won't do it through lockdowns. That we're entering a new phase of what this looks like. And it's actually much more scary than anything we've done, in fact, up till this point. What does it look like to have the virus going through our community? Now, I think that part of our responses to this and part of our response about vaccination has to do with the vocabulary and the way in which the government has been speaking. The government has been coercive in many ways in our behaviours. We haven't been able to gather as a church, haven't been able to go to work, haven't been able to travel more than 10 kilometres from your place of residence. So we've had so many freedoms restricted. And for many, they think that that might be government overreach. I totally understand that. The scriptures talk about the role of government being there for your good. So this is Romans chapter 13, verse 4. It says, "For the one in authority is God's servant for your good." And so what we see is the government acting for our good. But you've got to ask the question, what's good? Is the lockdown good? Is that the best option? And they're trying to juggle and weigh those things up. And you'll be thinking about those things in your own mind. You've missed out on all kinds of things as a result of the government restrictions. And I take it the government is continuing those restrictions now, primarily so people can get vaccinated. But that kind of feeling of overreach is pushing itself into the vaccination program. We do not have a mandatory vaccination program. That is not what the government has instituted. They're not mandating it. There may well be restrictions placed upon people as a result of whether or not they're vaccinated down the track, but that's not the case at the moment. But there certainly isn't a mandated a need to be vaccinated as a member of our community. And so we've got freedom to choose, freedom to work out what it means. So I think this is the space we're in now is what does it look like to make these decisions, knowing that the virus is probably most likely going to hit us very soon, that those who are vaccinated will be relatively well protected, and those that are not are quite susceptible, and that lockdowns won't be a means of protection. And as the government moves into a situation where more and more people have had the choice, that they're not going to use lockdowns to protect those that haven't been vaccinated. So what to do? Well, the vaccines don't make you immune. They don't mean you to say you don't get the disease. You still get the disease. You can still pass on the disease, but they reduce the severity of the symptoms and they reduce the likelihood of being able to pass it on, as I understand it. Now, the vaccines we have available in Australia, Pfizer, which if you choose to want that, it may be later down the track, and AstraZeneca. And I think there are two aspects of AstraZeneca that are of some concern. The two key issues with AstraZeneca are, of course, the blood clotting issue, and then also kind of how the vaccine was developed. The blood clotting issue is something that need to seek medical advice over, and that's something to discuss with your GP. Just knowing that God is in control of all things, and there are many things we do that involve risk in life. So that's an issue for you to discuss and think about. The other one is the way in which the research was developed. As I understand it, part of the research involved fetal tissue, and that's got concerns. I think as Christians, we certainly don't do evil that good may result. Paul condemns that kind of behaviour. We don't just think something's right because of an outcome, that the actions need to be right as well. So I think that we need to be able to say we condemn that behaviour, obviously killing of children. And I think that the kind of grey area is just this idea of what does it look like to have benefited from that. I think, my grandmother gave her body, Christian woman, believes in the resurrection of the dead, gave her body for scientific research. There's obviously consent involved in that, and she's done that. And no doubt there'll be some kind of research or whatever that we benefit from that experience. I think really that's an important issue for you to think about. The capacity to condemn that behaviour in the past, knowing that the things we have received from that won't add to any harm, however. So there won't be any increase in harm if someone takes AstraZeneca. In fact, it will reduce harm to one's neighbour, despite the history of its development. So that's AstraZeneca. The big issue is morally is thinking about love. What does it look like to love others? And it might be the context you're in means that you don't get vaccinated out of love for others. I don't know what that looks like, but you need to work that out for yourself. What does it look like to love the people around me, given the circumstance I'm in? It could be the situation where it's really important for someone not to be vaccinated because of the way they responded to vaccinations in the past. Or it could be for a whole variety of reasons. And it might mean that there's even more reason for you to be vaccinated so you don't pass it on to them. So there's all kinds of issues to be raised and answered. And you need to do that. You're an individual, moral human being. And not to feel bullied into a decision, whether it's from government or someone else. But for you to work out, what does it look like for you to love others? Now, that also means that at the other end of this, we need to realise there'll be people who are vaccinated and people who are not vaccinated. And certainly as a church, we will not have a mandated policy that people have to be vaccinated in order to participate in our programs. That's not what we're doing. And just to be upfront with you, that's going to be the case. They'll be rubbing shoulders with people who are both vaccinated and unvaccinated. That will be the case in what we do at church. But we also need to realise that we don't want to condemn each other for the decisions we've made. The scriptures describe this as Romans chapter 14 as well. Romans. It says, "Except the one whose faith is weak without quarrelling over disputable matters. One person's faith allows them to eat anything, but another whose faith is weak eats only vegetables. The one who eats everything must not treat with contempt the one who does not, and the one who does not eat everything must not judge the one who does, for God has accepted them. Who are you to judge someone else's servant? To their own master, servants stand or fall, and they will stand, for the Lord is able to make them stand." And so we stand before the judgment seat of God in these matters. That we don't want to condemn those who have been vaccinated or condemn those who haven't. We don't want this to be a cause of division in our church. The people have made their choices about what it looks like to love in their particular context, that in good conscience that they have made those decisions, not be bullied into them, and that they're acting in a way that they see as right, as moral human beings, that they've done that. And so we don't want to judge those who have been vaccinated or judge those who haven't. And I don't want that to be a point of contention in our church. But just to let you know that I have been vaccinated. I was vaccinated when the country reached 2.8% of those people fully vaccinated. I became eligible quite quickly because of Beth's diagnosis with cancer 4 years ago and what it means to be in her household. I'm also very open about it because I think that it's helpful for people to realise that I'm less of a risk. So I was conducting a funeral a few weeks back for my uncle, and I was able to share how I'd been vaccinated to gain confidence about being in that environment and sharing with others. And so I'm encouraging people to be vaccinated, to visit their GP, and as a means of actually caring for themselves and caring for others. However, it might not be the right thing for you. And I want to accept you and love you and look after you. And I want all of us to do the same. So I do look forward to when this season is over and we're able to see each other. But I do fear that things are going to get harder before they get easier. We're going to have to learn to live with this virus going through our community. And so I pray that the Lord will preserve you during these days and look forward to seeing you soon.